funny stories, you know. Dogs on board really make it fun. But what's great also is they make you discover a lot of beaches. Is you have to walk your dog at least morning and night. So as opposed to a sailor without pets on board, we always anchored aiming to find a place where we could dinghy to shore and let the dog play for a while. So it made us discover a lot of places that other sailors would just sail by or just stay at anchor because why bother to go on the boat, the little boat, you know? So I'm glad that we did that with the dog, you know. So, but yeah, it's
He's waiting.
6:29.
Go ahead.
So
I actually, you'll see that I started the recording. I'm surprised Brooke's not in the room yet. I know she was, but we have 5 people waiting. I'm gonna let them in.
well, there's feedback. Maybe because you're too close. It was.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. Hello, everybody. Can you hear us? There we go.
They're coming in muted, which is fine.
Yes. Hello. Hi, France. Hi, Ella. Hi, Barbara, Patricia, Tani, and Ben.
I think I'm going to give it just another minute, see if anybody else joins in.
Sure. Let everybody get situated and connect. Hello, everybody. We'll just wait a few minutes and allow people and the latecomers to pop in. Thank you for joining us.
So it looks like most people came in and some are still connecting to audio. We usually ask that you mute at the beginning of the session. If you have questions, you can put them in chat. But tonight we're actually treating this as very much an open conversation. So if you have questions, just feel free to unmute and jump in. And I think you'll really enjoy it. We've had a blast getting ready for the talk tonight. Good conversation.
We're just talking away. We're telling stories and tall tales already.
I don't have any interesting. I have very few interesting stories.
So we got more people wanting to come in. And I'll let Melanie, you're going to be, there we go.
Okay, I'm going to give it just one more minute.
Okay. 6:32. Thanks for coming, everybody. We're going to start in just a few moments.
I'll keep an eye on the meeting room as you know, as though in the waiting room. But so thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I love to meet and support local authors. So this is a really fun and exciting night. The book is Sail Above the Clouds by Carole Fontaine, who is with us tonight. And like I was saying at the beginning, it's a really fun book because it's a very honest memoir that gives you guidance on making choices in your life. And we're just going to jump right in. If you could just tell us, how did you end up on a sailboat?
We spent a lot of time on the sailboat. We moved on the boat and we stayed on the boat for 20 years. And originally I'm from Quebec, Canada. So right across the border from Maine, from where we are right now. And we moved to South Florida because it was too cold. We were running away from the winter like every snowbird. And we were down there one year and we decided, let's just stay in Florida. And it didn't take us long to, after a couple of years in Florida, to realize that we were motorcycle fans back then. We rode Harleys, and it was too hot to ride. And one day we were sitting on the beach, and it was after a particularly hard night. And I'll let, if the ones that haven't read the book, you can read the free excerpt, and you'll understand the first chapter is exactly how it happened. So I don't want to spoil the surprise for the ones that haven't read it. But we ended up having to change our life and to really consider, what we were doing. And we saw a boat go by. It's like, let's try sailing. Let's just get a boat and go out there and try sailing and cool off from our life, cool off from hot emotions, from a life that wasn't fitting us anymore. And so we bought a boat. We bought a smaller boat at first, and we tested that out. And after maybe only 9 months, we loved the little boat so much that it was either time to buy a house for us, as our life at that point in time. We needed to either buy a house or do something. And my husband was like, why would we buy a house? We love boating so much. Why don't we just buy a bigger boat and move on it? So like, okay, sure, let's try it. I was ready. I was game. So I told him to go ahead, and we went and searched for a boat. It was pretty amazing. It was pretty fun. So we bought Windsong and moved aboard. And then the whole book really revolves around simplifying your life, because it was a difficult path to really assess, what am I keeping? What am I letting go? What fits on the boat? First of all, the boat is a 41-foot Morgan. So it's not that big of a boat. If you imagine, your house, imagine 41 foot by 13 and a half. So that's the space that I basically spent 20 years of my life in. I ran a business from there. I had multiple businesses, actually. I had a magazine that I started. I had a jewelry business. I'm a graphic designer, so I would work from the boat. And my husband would usually work in the town that we lived in. So we would sail to different ports of call, and then we would live there for a while. And we'd dock the boat in different marinas, and then he would, in the morning, he'd just get off the boat and go to work, and then he'd come in at night, just like a 9-to-5er, except our life was different. And on the weekends and in the months of summer months or on vacation, we'd sail away. We'd go explore the Bahamas or South Florida and the islands, and just discover, what sailing is all about. So I was raised in a landlocked town. It's a small, very small town in Canada, 250 miles away from the ocean. So before we bought the boat and moved to Florida, I think I could count on my hand the times that I was actually physically on a boat floating. So I didn't know anything about it. And it was, my husband knew a little bit just from a pontoon on the lake, which is totally different than ocean sailing on a sailboat. And we thoroughly enjoyed it, but we did take Coast Guard classes, and we learned hard lessons from the hard way, just going out there and trying it. And we were young when we bought the boat, so we had a lot more courage and guts, because when you're young, you think you can do anything and you're invincible, and let's just go out there, buy a boat and sail the world. Well, Mother Nature sometimes has different ideas, and sometimes she teaches you some lessons that you really need to put safety first and learn to do the right things on the boat. So there was a lot of growing on the boat. I really feel like the Windsong, to me, it feels like it's part of the family, our boat, that it saw us grow. It's like an older family member that nurtured us and protected us and saw us grow and saw us going through crazy adventures, scary adventures, sad adventures, because we spent 20 years on the boat. So we went through a lot of things inside that boat. And but it has brought me so many amazing memories, and the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to also not um, uh, invest myself in things like at that age I would normally be interested in, like buying a house and buying all the toys and buying more and establishing yourself. Because when you're a little bit younger, you're into material things a lot, and you're into establishing yourself and making money and the normal American way, which is nothing bad, but it's got its downsides too. So if you focus more into that physicality, you may be not focused enough onto your spirituality and into what really matters inside your heart, and what inspires you, what's your purpose, the big questions. So I feel that making that life choice has given us the opportunity to take a step back from what would have been our life basically, and it offered the opportunity to really open ourselves and our hearts to a different lifestyle, and to be more mindful about what's important in life. So I'll leave it at that. That has been a big huge thing, is to really focus on my heart, my life path, what matters to me, the big questions, and and also living with someone 20 years in tight space. It's almost, sometimes it feels like a prison. Sometimes it's like confinement.
I know before people joined us, we had a conversation about living in a tight space and living on a boat. But you also, this is my favorite question of the night, but you also did that with dogs. Can you tell us how you managed having pets aboard a boat?
Yes, we raised two dogs on over the years on the boat at different times. One by at the same time, Dingo was with us for 15 years on the boat. He was actually a land dog. He was with us when we bought the first boat, the little one, and then when we graduated on the big boat, he moved aboard. So he was at heart always a land puppy. So to the end of the day, he refused to go potty on the boat. I was never able to train him for that. My little one was 6 months when I got him. And so he was sailing to the Bahamas at 6 months, and he had this little astroturf, and he would just go out there. We actually had to stop him from going by the mast, because he would go and it would be like big seas and waves out there and the boat sailing away. And he's like, I'm going partying. And he would just, and we're like, no, you're not, because he was tiny and we didn't want him to be washed away. So we had to tie him, say, no, you got to wait. And but sailing with pets is really, really lovely, because I was telling Melanie, when you're sailing without a pet, you come to an anchorage, you throw your anchor down, you sit and relax, you watch the sunset, you have a nice dinner, and that's it. In the morning, you raise the anchor and you go. When you have a pet, you look for places where morning and night you take the dinghy to the beach or to shore so you can walk your pet, because you want to explore. Even though my pet was trained to go do his business on the boat, we still wanted to give him the exercise and the walk around. So it helped us discover all these amazing places, deserted islands, sometimes with abandoned villages, and where there'd be history, and we explore because we had the dog. And also, it also caused a lot of trouble, because sometimes it would force us to end up going to places where we probably would have been better on the boat, but we're like, no, we really gotta go, we really gotta go. It'd be stormy and we'd be taking on waves, and the little puppy would have his little life vest. And we're like, we're going to shore. Family trip. But it was really nice to have them on the boat with us. And I think we offered a very nice life for them, even though they were on the boat, because we did make sure that they had the exercise, they could make it to shore. Because a lot of people say, well, they should have a backyard. Yeah, but they had a good home and they were rescued, so they were happy dogs. They were very well loved.
You're talking about those times that you had some harrowing experiences. Is there any experience that was really terrifying when you were aboard a?
Oh, there were many. And there were a lot that happened when I was younger that at the time I wasn't terrified. And I think about it, I'm like, oh man, I was nuts to do what I did. I was just like, yeah, let's go. But I think one of the most terrifying time, that particular word you use would be actually when we sailed from Florida to Maine in 2018. And it wasn't on the ocean, it was on the Chesapeake. And I don't know if some of you are sailors or if you know a little bit about sailing, but waves when they come in it's like a big circle. And when you're on the ocean, the wave just runs and runs. So the boat just goes up and it goes down. So whether you're sailing in 10 feet wave, 20 feet wave, if you're out on the ocean and the wave just keeps going, you just raise up and raise down, unless the waves are really close by, then you can have trouble. But when you're on shallow water, like on the Chesapeake, the circle of the wave gets knocked down from the bottom of the ocean. So it causes crazy, chaotic oceans. And the waves, it creates like a washing machine that we call it. And we ended up in the rogue storm that just appeared out of the blue. And we got caught with our pants down. We had the sails out. We've been sailing for 20 years and we were really just not prepared. We were relaxing. There was a little bit of a storm away, and then all of a sudden the wind picked up. It shifted around, and our radar was not on, and before we knew it, the winds were crazy. It went up. It climbed up 30 knots, 40 knots, 50 knots, and the seas picked up and we ended up in the washing machine. And that was just the beginning of a very harrowing, terrifying afternoon. 3 hours of this. The sails tore up. The boat was a mess. I actually had hurt my back from trying to pull in the sails with Eric, because when that happened, we got caught too late, which is totally our fault. You know, as experienced sailor, we were listening to the wrong weather channel for the area. We were not experienced with the Chesapeake. We should have, explored a little bit more how sailing the Chesapeake happens. And when we talk about this with other sailors, they all say, "Oh, you must have been sailing the Chesapeake." I'm like, yeah. So it's well known for that over there. And it ended up, I hurt my back helping Eric. He had to tie himself down. The boat was heeling. The lines were fraying. The toaster oven flew across me downstairs. I had the doggy was crying. Everything was flying. Oh, things that weren't flying on the boat that was really secure for 20 years were suddenly jumping off the shelves. And on the boat, there's always a lip that stops things from getting off the shelf. So the shelves have a little stopper. Well, we were healing so much, everything was on the floor. And it was left to me to tell Eric where to go. So I was trying to navigate, but when a storm comes, a boat if you want to settle the boat down, you want to point to the wind. So it's easier on the boat that way. When you point to the wind, you remove the wind from the sails and you can finally quiet down. But we couldn't point that way because we would have run into some rocks. So it was tight, narrow passages, and we were kind of stuck in a very bad position, a very bad angle for the waves and the wind. And then that's when the fire alarm started. I'm opening up the hatch. I'm screaming to my husband, the fire alarm, there's smoke. And he's tied and he can't, he's turning 3 wheels to the side, 3 wheels to the, so you're gonna have to do something because I can't come down. And he's taking on ocean and oh my goodness, the dog is crying. So, but actually it was the oil that we were healing so badly that the oil was spewing out of the gauge, and the oil on the hot motor was smoking and it was a mess. But I'm writing about that and explaining it in more details because there's a lot more to it than that. But you can see how harrowing and terrifying a day can turn when we were actually sitting in the cockpit, enjoying how fortunate we were. It had been like, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks we were out in the water since then, from our trip from Florida to Maine. We were like, oh, la, la. And then that's how quickly the weather can turn if you're not paying attention. And we were just totally not paying attention. That day is probably one of the only days that I had a moment of grace, and I actually prayed and said, if I get out of here, I'm going to do something. I promise you I'm going to do something. Please let me out of here. Please bring us home to safety, to a safe harbor. And I've never done that in 20 years. So that's how scared I was.
That's a perfect segue to the book. So I know that your plan is to write 4 in a series.
Yes. Yep.
And so could you tell us a little bit about what the acronym means?
Yes. SAIL, it stands for Simplify, Align, Integrate, and Let Go. And it's basically when you simplify, align, integrate tools in your life, and let go of everything that hinders your success, you are able to find this pure joy in your life. You're able to navigate obstacles gracefully and easily. And I created this because I had initially done one book. So basically, the 4 books are almost all written to a certain degree. But I was told that it was too big. There was too many stories. I'm like, well, I've been on the boat 20 years. There is a lot to tell. And so I decided to cut them in 4. And at the time I was teaching also, I teach meditative writing, mindfulness, meditation, yoga. And all these tools that I learned are really, really amazing to help people live with stress, and manage stress, manage their health, manage this COVID crisis, all these things that happen in their daily life. You don't need to be a sailor to have stress. Everybody has stress and big things that happen. So how do you manage these things? And I wanted to share these tools with the readers, but I wanted also to entertain and tell my fun stories. When I taught meditative writing, I would always use stories of my sailing days to illustrate. And at the end of class, most of my students would come and say, instead of asking about these important tools that I thought were so amazing, everybody knew them, they'd ask me, you live on the boat for 20 years? I want to hear more about that. So I'm like, okay. So I decided to join both, sharing the meditative writing as a journey, the easy life tips to inspire you with the stories. So that's how Sail Above the Clouds got born. That's how I created that. So right now I'm working on book 2, which is all about align. So just like set up like book 1, each story is a crazy adventure, something that's happened. And then you have a life lesson, something that I've learned. You have a journaling question, so you can explore in your life how to activate that energy in your life, how to discover that space, whether it's healing your relationship or learning to face things without fear or whatever subject that I'm on. And then there's a short little exercise to help you gain that. So the second book will be all about align, but the stories, it's not necessarily about alignment, but it will illustrate a point that I'm trying to make.
I'm going to share, maybe you can share one little story with us, but I'm going to share my favorite question, because as I was reading through the book, I was telling you this at the beginning, that this was the question that I went, really, this is something that you really should think about. But the question at the end of this chapter is, what do I dream about but hold off doing? Mm-hmm. And I was saying that I'd love to write. So like, how did you come to write a book? Like, what prompted you just in general, and how did you put it all together?
I started writing when I was probably at my lowest in my life. I had been sick for maybe about 5 years. And I had a friend that was very into holistic healings and yoga and Reiki and meditation. And she saw how distressed I was. I was physically struggling with chronic digestive problem. I had multiple organ issues that my whole system was crying and malfunctioning, but each different separate doctors were not talking to each other. So they were treating my liver, they were treating my feminine, my skin, my digestion. All these different doctors weren't talking with one another, and I was really getting depressed. And I was taking a lot of medication. They were testing stuff on me, and she said, "You really need to write." And she was really annoying me. I was like, what is writing going to do for me? I need someone to tell me what's wrong with my body. And she kept nagging, and you need to write. Journaling is so good for you. And you'll see, you'll try. And I would push it aside for a while. And then she would also do oracle cards for me. Those are cards that you buy, that you pull out one and they have a little message. And I would go to her house and let's do the cards. And my card would always come out right. And I was like, I throw it back at her. I'm like, this is nuts. I'm not a writer. And I'm French. So English is my second language. So and I wrote in English. So, but finally, out of desperation, I didn't know what to do. And I was ready to try everything. I turned to the holistic ways, I turned to meditation, and I started journaling. And the journaling really, really, really opened my heart. And a lot of pain came out from it, a lot of internal turmoil that I wasn't mindful about it. I wasn't aware. I knew I felt bad. I knew I wasn't happy, but I couldn't put words to it. I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was. I just felt, it was more than just my body. There was also things in my life that I wasn't happy with, but I wasn't looking at it. I had turned a blind eye. And what meditative writing and journaling did for me was it helped me put words to it and really realize that, hey, I have the answers. I know how to heal my body. I know how to heal myself. I'm stronger than I think that I am. And just start with taking a breath, start with getting to know yourself. I needed to get to know myself. What did I like? What did I not like? And that sent me on a journey of self-discovery. And I started taking personal growth workshops, and I became trained as a certified life coach, a yoga teacher, Shakti dance, Reiki, everything I could get my hands on. It's like I couldn't satisfy that need, that want to learn, because once I started to feel better, I was like, oh my goodness, I need more. So I went down that path. And as I went down that path, I also realized a lot of things that I was doing was creating stress. The stress was affecting my body. And I also got DNA tested, realized I was a celiac. It was a lot of medical things physically with me. But really, the journaling and the writing sent me down that path. And I started teaching that to other people, because there's a lot of people that are struggling out there physically or with grief or with pain. And I've told myself, if writing helps me that much, I need to share this. So I started sharing that with others. And when I saw how beneficial it was, and like I said, the people would tell me after class, and they would ask me all these questions about my life on the boat. I was very, not secretive, but very, very private for the longest time about living on the boat. Maybe because back then, you got to understand, that was like 23 years ago. A lot of people judge people. in the South, unless you're a boater, like they really think you're a bum, which we probably look like for the longest time in flip-flops with long hair and disheveled. So I kind of kept my professional graphic designer profile more, and I didn't really mention, that I lived on the boat. Now that I'm 53, everybody is, oh yeah, I lived on the boat 20 years. Everybody's like, wow, this is awesome. Tell me more. So I started to open up more and share about my life. And I decided to blend the writing with it. And I started to write my stories down. I had logbooks from all our travels. And I just started the words starting to want to come out. I believe that the more you journal, the more you write, and the more it's like you're lighting that you're giving wind to that flame, because the flame is always there. The flame is in everybody. That passion, whatever it is, that passion that you have inside, once you discover it, you give wind to it, it just wants to come out. And for me, my stories, wanting to inspire people, wanting them to feel better. And when I started to feel better, there's nothing more in the world that I wanted to do than to share all these tools that I learned with other people so that they too can feel better. Because I know what it is to feel crappy. I know what it is to feel depressed, to be sick, to be told that you need to take medication for the rest of your life. That feeling bad is okay because that's the best we can do for you right now. And, for me, that was totally unacceptable. And I said, no, I'm going to fire you, Mr. Doctor. I'm going to find a way to feel better. And when I did, there's nothing that was going to stop me to share this with other people so they too can feel better. So that's how I came about to write.
The part that works in the book is that you share your own stories, and then there's a tidbit that somebody else could work on at home. I'm going to open it up to the group now, so anybody out there, if you have questions, please feel free to unmute and you can ask questions directly. And if you're more comfortable putting them in chat, that's fine too.
Hi, Roz. Hi, Etta. Hi, everybody. If there's anybody that has a question, go ahead.
Hi, Carole. I just wanted to say, Melanie, we've known Carole, Roz and I have known Carole for years and years. And everything she said to you, everything she told you, everything she did, she was expert at, from meditative writing that she learned to Shakti dance, to meditation, to everything that she ever put her mind to, she did to the top of excellence of anybody. It's true, right, Roz? Isn't it true? I know when I met Carole the first time, it was during the summer, and we're in Florida, and she came in to meditate with us at the Hollywood Library. And Roz wasn't there in the summer. Her teacher mentality kept her home. And after class, I called her and I said, we just met the most wonderful girl, the most wonderful meditator, jewelry designer, everything she could ever do and accomplish, she accomplished. And now she's writing, and isn't that an amazing, amazing, I just can't tell you how proud we are of her. She's just an amazing lady. And
thank you.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
You are an inspiration.
Oh, that's quite nice.
Edna and Roz teach meditation at the Hollywood Library. They've been teaching it by Zoom now, but they are both huge inspiration to me. Hi. Lots of love.
Lots of love to you. And I know every book you write is going to be successful. And my daughter Janice is here now. And she just said, who's going to play you in the movie?
High temperature trees in the desert. temporary sanctuaries in the land of Israel, and finally we have 2 temples in Jerusalem. At this time in our history, though, we have and still use.
Roz, I
think
think
there's a
there
little
you
bit
go.
of background
There you
noise.
go.
So are there any sailing questions out there? I see some sailboats out there, but does anybody have any questions about sailing or other adventures?
Well, Carol, did you talk about the terrible storm that you went through and you didn't know how you were going to make it?
Yes, we did. That was a pretty terrible. There's been a lot actually, because once that I have all my logbooks now, and I go through the books, and I remember stories. The thing is, in 20 years of sailing, you forget so many adventures. Then you remember, it's like, oh my goodness, do you remember the time we almost sunk back in the Exumas? I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta write about that. So I take notes and I write them. But there's been many, and there's been many fortunate times where I do feel that we had a guardian angel watching over us. I think it's really important we always had safety first in the boat, even though that we were young and wild and crazy when we started this, and we're very adventurous, and my husband is really also very adamant that everybody knows the safety procedure. They know where everything is, they know how to use the radio in case of emergency. But it's been very rare where my husband has been also terrified, and that last storm he was. But there's been a few times where I tied myself to the console while my husband's sailing, and he's so happy, he's tickle happy. He's like, there's nothing to be afraid, honey. We're healing and we're sailing. But depending on where you're pointing and where the waves are going, sometimes you might be sailing at angle, like a nice comfortable angle, but some on occasion you might be sailing this way even though you're moving forward. And for me, it's the motion that creates a lot of angst for me. If I'm being pushed around a lot, I don't really get seasick, but I get so uncomfortable. I don't like it. I'm like, I don't like it. I don't want to be on this boat right now. And there was one time in particular, we were pushed against the time. And when you sail, you learn really quick that you can't be on a time schedule, because the weather will always be the number one factor in your schedule. And on that day, we stayed too long in the Exuma, and we needed to sail all the way back to the Florida Keys because my husband was supposed to start work again after, I think it's 3-4 weeks off. So he needed that job. He needed to be on time. And we just waited too long because we were enjoying ourselves too much. And what happened is we had no choice. We couldn't, usually we would have stayed at anchor and waited out the bad weather, but we were pushed against time and we went for it anyway. And I ended up sitting at the bottom of the cockpit for the whole afternoon with my my harness on, tied to the console, holding on like this. And my husband at the wheel saying, there's nothing to be worried about, honey. Everything is safe. We're having a lot. It was sunny, but I was like, I hate this. I want to go home. And I remember how uncomfortable and how my chest felt tight, and I was just really nervous about it. But my husband was in absolute control of the boat. And if there's one thing that I learned, is that the boat will handle a lot more than us human will. And lots of times you'll hear about, well, if you look at the perfect storm and the sailboat that was abandoned, and they rescued the people off the sailboat, and that's a true story. And then they found the boat months later. They find boats abandoned, still floating. Yes, the boat is battered, but the boat's still floating. So the boat will survive a lot more than humans will. We'll get scared. We're like, okay, we can't take it. We'll take me off this boat. But that's really, and our Morgan was very forgiving because it's an older boat, very tough and thick fiberglass hull. And Charlie Morgan designed an amazing boat. And it was very forgivable because we hit bottom quite a few times. We hit sandy bottoms, but we also hit twice 2 or 3 times reefs, of course, by accident, sailing uncharted waters. It happens. You have to be careful when it happens. And we've checked the hull after, and only on one time did we do damage on the boat. And we were actually surprised by water coming up the floorboards the following day. So that's a story that's coming up. Is it in book 1? I'm not sure. I think it's in book 2. But we were in the Exumas again. Exumas were one of my favorite stomping ground, and we were in a deserted island by ourselves. I woke up in the morning all sleepy-eyed, and I walked. Our bedroom was a little bit higher, and there's a step down to go in the galley, and that's the kitchen area. So I stepped down, and I step in water, and I went, honey! Because when you're an anchor and you wake up and you got feet in the water, it's never a good sign. So yeah, there's a lot of adventures, but I'm really glad that I did it, because I do feel that I found myself because of these adventures. I found courage, bravery. It empowered me. It made me feel good about riding this sailboat. When I started sailing this boat, I didn't know anything. I had only sailed a tiny boat for 9 months, and the first time that I actually sailed windsong, I'll remember to the day I die. I was in the Key Biscayne sailing. We were maybe heeling 15 degrees. We were in a beautiful, beautiful day. The full sails open. We have a catch that's 2 masts. So we have sails on the front, sails in the back. And my husband was downstairs fixing the motor. There was something wrong with it. It wasn't working. We were sailing, but we needed it to go in and out of port. So while we were sailing, he's like, I'll go check out what's wrong with it. And I'm sailing, and then I'm screaming, honey, I'm doing 15 knots. And I was so proud of myself. And he came out all sweaty. He's like, honey, please, I got my butt up and I'm like this trying to fix the motor. Can you like slack off a little bit? I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm doing 15 knots. Myself. And that was a huge moment, to realize that a tiny little woman like me can sail a 15-ton boat. And every time that we would go out, that I would learn how to sail this boat, it made me feel good about myself, because I was like, I can do this. And so you discover strength that you didn't have. You discover strength also from my years of being sick. And but the sailing part, the discovering, the exploring has really brought me a lot. It's opened my eyes to new world, to embracing different cultures, embracing people from all walks of life, and different lifestyle, because you don't want to be judged, so you realize you don't judge other people too for their lifestyles, and you meet all kinds of people when you're cruising from all over the world, whether you're a millionaire or you never worked a day in your life, or someone that's just taking a sabbatical or raising a family on the boat. You're all in flip-flops. So you can't tell who's who. So there's no attitude to be had. You're out there. If you see someone that needs help, you help. You're eager to connect. You're eager to be neighborly and say, hey, where you from? Where you've been? And you exchange. It's a beautiful community. It's a beautiful lifestyle.
Will you do it again?
I'm ready for RVing, honestly, because anything after 20 years, that's 2 decades. That's a long time. And we had windsong 23 years. So I think the next thing that I want to do is, we just bought a home last week. So this is my first home, and I'm really enjoying it. But I think I want to discover more of what everybody's been talking about, and go see the Grand Canyon, go see all these beautiful places in the Sequoia Forest, and all these Sedona, all these places that people have gone. I haven't gone because I've seen a different a watery world, you know, a different way of seeing the US. I've seen the coast from, you know, coming into port. So now I'd like to just explore an RV. I would love to do the whole US, go all the way up to British Columbia, go across Canada, all the way down to the Maritimes, and then back to Maine. That would be an amazing trip. I'd like.
And hopefully you'll write about it.
Yes, that could be my next book series.
Carole, I know that it was very difficult for you to not to sell Windsong. I know because you loved it. And tell the story about your angst about that, because I know you've written about it. And after you have something like that for so long and live a certain lifestyle, and then to be grounded into a home, it's a big difference. So I know that's a beautiful, the way you decided, you and Eric, that's a beautiful story too. Well, all of them are, you know.
Yes, that will definitely be part of my fourth book, which is about letting go.
Yes.
Letting go, I think, is one of the most important and hardest lesson that we can learn in life. And we put Windsong for sale about a little bit over a year and a half ago. And when we put it for sale, the first people that came to visit, that first couple, when they came over, I was so distraught. I cried for days. I was ready to sell. I thought I was ready to sell. Well, actually, it was my husband's decision to move to Maine, and we knew that we didn't want to live aboard in a northern state where there's the snow to deal with. And you know, I've already been carrying my laundry for 20 years in a dinghy or in a basket for long. I've done the living aboard in the South where it's kind of nice. But doing it here, that's for hardcore people. I have so much respect for people that do it in that climate. It's amazing. They are amazing, and I raise my hat to them. And I didn't want to do it. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna live on land. We're gonna try land. Why not? We've done this for 20 years. But it was still very difficult, because when I realized that this was going to be it, I really felt like my identity was being stripped away. After 20 years, I had become, me and Windsong had become one. I'm the sailor, I'm the woman that lives on the sailboat. Without Windsong, I felt lost. I think maybe people can relate if they've, like, for example, had a job for 50 years and then they retire, and you find yourself at home not knowing what to do with yourself because you're not working anymore, because you've identified so long with a certain thing. So I felt lost. The moment that I moved off the boat, I really had a tough time. It took me maybe about, I would say, 10 months, a year and a half, where I would get inundated by these emotions. And we still have Windsong. It was just in Portland. So we were half an hour away. So we would go every weekend and check on it. We still do, because even though it's sold, we're its guardian until it's picked up by the new owner. So I still get to go see Windsong every weekend. But I would go there and I would be like, all of a sudden I could breathe, like I felt home, like this was home, and I temporarily lived off the boat. It felt very strange. So the first couple that came, I really felt torn. I was on one side happy and excited about my new life beginning, trying new things, trying life on land, getting a house, doing the RV, but letting go of that part of my life that's fulfilled me and brought me so much. That was very difficult. And but it taught me a huge, great lesson about letting go about who I thought I was. I am not a sailor. I am not the yogi on board. I am not this. I'm not all these words. They're just something that they're like an image, a mask, something that an actor puts on. Who I am is a person, a human being. I'm me, no matter where I am, no matter what I do. So letting go of that was really just telling myself it's okay to be me without having that, without being the sailor. I'm more than just a sailor. I'm more than a teacher, a woman, whatever we identify with. So it was really stripping all that off and getting back to who am I at the end. So which is how my first book started. The first question of chapter 1 is who am I really? So it's really my long time search about who am I and finding that out. And every time I think that I've grasped who I am with all the personal growth and the discovery, there's another layer that comes. There's something else that comes. There's these life event that comes that makes me realize that I'm much deeper than that. Look at that. There's this new thing. Now I'm a writer. I wasn't a writer when I left Windsong. So there's all these new episodes. It's like in Brahma Kumaris, my teachers would say, the drama is always perfect. So that and we're like actors in life, and we have all these different roles that we do. We're mothers and sisters, sailors, teachers, and once we realize that we are so much more than that, we are essence, we are life, we are a being, and we embrace that fully, and we embrace the purpose of why we are here, then everything else is just a mask that needs to be taken off so you can discover and really be who you truly are and really shine in your purpose.
That's a perfect spot for us to end the evening. So unless there's any more questions, I'm just going to say a huge thank you to Carole for joining us tonight. And the book is Sail Above the Clouds. We have a copy at the library. They're available online. Check out our website, Inspired by Life. Inspired
Life
by Carole.
Yeah. The first 2 chapters you can read for free. So share away. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Melanie. It's been amazing. Thank you, McArthur Library.
Nice to see you, and support your local authors. Yay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carole.
Thank you so much for coming, everybody.
Bye. Good luck.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thanks, Carole.